I'm your host, Rocks, and in this season, we aim to empower and embrace creativity through diversity as we dive into the fascinating stories and experiences of a diverse range of individuals, highlighting their unique perspectives and creative endeavors, from artists and entrepreneurs to innovators and activists. We celebrate the power of diversity in driving creativity and fostering positive change. Join us as we engage in thought-provoking conversations like
made myself intentionally homeless in pursuit of my purpose.
We're aware that a lot of people want to present and they were in my position and what's worse, they weren't a white male, which is a joke that's even still a thing.
I think my family never ever say you can't do something. So full of support for whatever dream. If I said tomorrow I want to fly to the moon, they'll probably say I wish you all the best, Mel.
So guys, I just want to say thank you for supporting the Us People podcast for the past 5 years. And we look forward to sharing another new theme song with you. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Samantha Gilchrist and I'm the CEO of the Gilchrist Collection. You're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I am humbled to have Sam here with me. She started her career as a wedding photographer, but she is now the CEO of Gilchrist Collection wedding venues with over 15 years of experience within the wedding industry. Sam, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You are more than welcome. Thank you so much. So Sam, my first question, which I love to ask people who come on the show, is just to find out more about who they are as a person. So could I kindly ask you, could you tell me about yourself and where you grew up, but also how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Wow, yeah, okay, that's a big question. Where I grew up, it's actually funny you asked that because I was thinking about that earlier today. I was actually born in Brixton and my mom and my dad had a little flat above a shop. And then just to show my age, the Brixton riots were occurring and the police came down the road and said, hey, you need to get out. Tonight they're going to be rioting and we're worried about these shops. So my mom just grabbed a bag and we went to Sussex. And that's where my grandma lived. And that night they came down and they petrol bombed all the shop windows, everyone upset for hours. So she went back the next day, grabbed all our stuff and basically moved to Sussex. So that's where I started. And yeah, I don't know why I thought about that earlier. I was like, oh, it's an interesting, how I ended up in Sussex, which is where I am now still. I was always into art and drawing and dressmaking. As a kid, my mum would make me, crepe paper dresses. I think from the age of 4, she became a single parent mum. But my whole childhood, I just remember it being magic. I don't ever remember anything, I don't really remember any struggles. I know my mum now as an adult had lots of struggles, but, as a kid, I just had a really magical childhood. And I really think that's what developed for me, being interested in art and creativity. When I was about, I think 9, I'm sorry, this will roll, but
no, I like
about
this.
9. When I was about 9, I decided, maybe 9 or 10, I decided my mom should get married and, basically shut me up. Yeah, I was like, we need a wedding. I'd been a bridesmaid a couple of times and I was like, let's have another wedding. I think I'd been a bridesmaid like 3 times. So my mom sort of to shut me up was like, why don't you design some wedding dresses? And I pretty much spent the next 4 years designing and drawing wedding dresses, in the evening just for fun. So then when I was about 14, I went to the Brit Performing Arts and Technology School in East Croydon. You're like nodding, you're like, yes, I've heard of that. At the time when I went, it had only been open for 4 years and, our claim to fame was Dane Bowers. But obviously since that time, and Imogen Heap as well, actually, but since that time, many incredible people have come out of that school. So when I went there, I went to do set design and stagecraft because I was really interested in costume making. I had to do all my GCSEs at the same time because I was only 14. And I got in with my wedding dress designs. And also at the time I was, fascinated by a designer called Erte. And I think they was just quite, confused by the fact that here was this 14-year-old drawing big wedding dresses influenced by a 1920s fashion designer. And I think it was very different to, what they were seeing, which was great. So did that, then took a break after that school for a while, and then decided that I wanted to go to London College of Fashion, and I wanted to do fashion styling because I had looked at doing set design and stagecraft, but I'd looked into the courses and I was like, actually, I don't really want to do that. So I don't know, I decided I wanted to dress celebrities. Now, knowing me and my friends knowing me, when I say that, they laugh because I can't dress myself, let alone anyone
Don't
else.
say that, Sam.
Really, it's quite funny. It's all a bit discombobulated. I had to get my colors done and get a stylist and everything to get it all round the right way. But luckily, there was photography on the course. And I remember being so cool because I had paid, I think, £400 for a 2-megapixel camera that was state of the art.
Yeah, I had my film camera, so I know exactly where you're going with this. I thought I was super cool.
Yeah, so I literally just got in the crossover from film to digital. It was just that little crossover.
And the screen was about 2 inches or something.
Tiny. I actually still have the camera. It sits in my office on my windowsill. Yeah, just as a fun reminder of, my first digital camera. So that was a journey. But when I finished, I was broke. So I had to get a job. So I went into human resources. And to say I hated it was an understatement. And I think they checked my computer a couple of years in. They checked my computer and they were like, "We want to see your internet search history."
Uh-oh.
I think it was hours on MySpace. I was like, "Oh."
I think we all were on MySpace. There's a couple others as well. I think that's when Facebook just started, maybe as well.
It was just moving over to Facebook, sort of coming off of MySpace. Anyway, that was fun. But I had a very interesting conversation with my uncle at the time. I obviously wasn't doing great at the job. I was doing fine, but not incredible. And my uncle had just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he sat me and my cousin down. He lived in Hove and had this incredible apartment that looked out at the sea. And we were sitting on the steps outside his apartment, and he was very young. He basically said to us, I've had all this opportunity, but because I thought I was going to live so much longer, I never took it. And I wanted to travel. I wanted to do this. And, I didn't take it. And it just impinged. And I think, the next morning, I just walked over a bridge on the way to work. And it was one of those weird epiphany moments where I looked out over the bridge and I was like, I hate my job. I just arrived at work and I quit. And they were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to start a photography business." And they said, "Do you even know how to use a camera?" And I was like, "Not really, no." And I did. I got a job in a boarding school 4 nights a week, and I started a photography business.
See, that's power right there.
Yeah.
When you don't care if you do or do not know how to do something, but you're doing it because the passion of it, everything else kind of just flourishes afterwards because you're loving it, and then you build a team from there. Okay, this is where I would love to know the transition. So you decided to open a photography business, but then you decided to do wedding photography. Now, this question I have to ask, you have to have resilience to be a wedding photographer. And I'm sure you know why I'm saying this.
Yeah.
You have bridezillas, you have people that can be very demanding, and you as a business, you have to cater to the client's needs, as we all know. And we have to be very professional in how we articulate that. One thing I would
Yeah.
love to know from your perspective, when you were a wedding photographer, how did you manage to keep up with the demand of being a wedding photographer? Because there's creativity, there's the business itself, there's you handling maybe a team around you. How was that all for you?
So it's interesting you say that, because when I was at Brits, you kind of had your major subject and you had your minor subject, and then you had all of your GCSEs. And one of the subjects I took was drama. And I was never interested in being an actress, but I loved performing and I loved being on stage. And I honestly think that made it so much easier to be a wedding photographer, because when you do speak to photographers, 90% of them run a mile when you say wedding photography. They're like, I'm out. We're not doing it. Yeah, I was like, your hand is up. Like, I am that person. I understand, because there's so much control that has to go into a wedding. And I had to learn really fast that I was in charge, and everybody had to fit to my timeline.
Yes.
And they had to do what I needed. And I needed to control probably sometimes 100 to 150 people to get the group photos done in 20 minutes. So I devised a method of doing them, working from the biggest photo to the smallest, and I just used to pull people around. I also got a very thick skin, because again, being a woman wedding photographer, I came across so many challenges. Whilst the couple were always fantastic, because I always built a really good rapport with my couples. And I never actually took on a couple that I didn't connect with. Like, if I met them and we didn't connect, I actually wouldn't take the job on, because for me, it's, if I'm going to bring out the love in them and get those iconic photos, I have to be emotionally connected to them. But, that doesn't mean that the other 100 people you're emotionally connected to. So that was interesting. But I did love doing wedding photography. I would do other things in and around it, because for me, I found business-wise, it was very difficult because it was seasonal. I never managed, at the time when I did photography, I never really managed to crack the winter months. I would do a couple of weddings, but not a huge amount. And for me, I mean, like you said, I did wedding photography for a long time. I think by the time I hung up my camera, it was about 15 years. And during that time, I photographed everything from an incredible registry office wedding where they then went to the pub afterwards. I did that a few times. It was fantastic. And, we took pictures on the street, to a wedding that ended up having all their couple photos taken in Windsor Castle, and they got married in the registry office just outside where, Charles and Camilla got married. And I did a wedding in the Tower of London and, Seattle and Florida, just random places. And also at the same time, I would do a wedding in a cow's barn that literally had cows in it 3 weeks before they were trying to air the smell out on the morning of the wedding.
You're my kind of people.
For me, it was very much, I was very excited by, people's journey and where they were choosing to get married. And I really feel like it really made me understand not only the importance of planning, obviously, a good wedding, because I saw many things that didn't go right that had been due to lack of planning or lack of organization, bad staff at venues, etc. But I also really, really, really got the understanding of, ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're taking two people that love each other and they're dedicating themselves to each other to then be able to share a journey together where they matter, because they get to then come home and tell that person about their day, and it makes their day relevant, and it makes, it brings meaning to their journey in life. And then, hopefully they're blessed with children and they can create a family and have that wonderful journey. So for me, that seeing all the, the wedding that didn't spend a lot of money and the wedding that spent hundreds of thousands of pounds, but ultimately, like, that's what it comes down to. So I loved that. I loved every part of it. But the honest truth was it got to a point where I was missing out on things myself in life, because I was booking weddings 24 months in advance. And then suddenly one of my closest friends would announce her wedding, and it would be on the same day as a wedding I'd already booked.
Yeah.
Or my husband played cricket for 4 years, and his cricket team, this was when we were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, his cricket team literally told him that they thought I was make-believe, because everybody else's girlfriends would come and sit in the grass and lounge around, and I was nowhere to be seen, because obviously weekends were peak work time for me.
That's true.
You know, I did other photography things. I did portraits, events, some children photography, etc. around it, but predominantly it was weddings. And it just really got to a point for me where I had done it all under my name as well. I'd done it under Samantha, at the time my maiden name, Samantha Wordy Photography. So it's not like I could send someone else. I was it, and I had to be there.
Yeah.
So I started to mull in my mind, okay, how could I make a transition? What could I do? I also was a little bit lonely, like working, you know, by myself from home. On shoot days, I would have people with me, but during the week, I was very much on my own, and I used to work in Starbucks in the mornings just to chat to people, you know. So yeah, I think I'd just gotten to the point where I sort of, you know, I was mid-30s, and I was like, I'd like to think about changing this up a little bit. I had a very good friend who is still my very good friend, my now business partner, and we'd had some interesting conversations about, he's a serial entrepreneur and has a number of businesses. And we'd had conversations about maybe finding a business park. Like in England, you have a lot of these farms that have turned themselves into business parks with all these units, you know, so you can have businesses there Monday through Friday in the unit. And quite often they have a big barn. So my idea was, let's find a business park. You can have all your businesses there through Monday through Friday, and I'll do weddings in the barn on the weekend. And we'd kind of talked about it a little bit, but nothing really serious over a couple of year period. So I had gone to the National Wedding Show, which was a huge show in London, and it was my first time, and I was completely freaked out. And I'd spent all this money on the stand, and I was like, the universe has to give me something good out of this, because I've spent more money than I think I ever owned at that moment on this stand. It was really surreal, because I met this wonderful couple who looked at one of the pictures that I had and said, oh, we've been to that venue. We're having a very intimate wedding of 20 people, and we're really struggling to find a venue that won't just lock us in one room and will actually give us some space. Because they were looking at hotels, and hotels were like, yeah, sure, but you can just have that room all day. And, you know, that wasn't working for them. So I gave them my details. I told them to send me an email, and I knew a lot of country houses, and I'd do my best to suggest some places to them, obviously with the hope that I would book the wedding. A couple of weeks later, they sent me an email. I was sitting in Starbucks, and so Starbucks is a big part of my life.
Mine was Costa's, so it's okay.
Yeah, I understand. So I answered the email, and I was just about to press send, and then suddenly I remembered the Ravenswood, and we'd been there 6 months previously. I'd never actually photographed there, but we'd been there 6 months previously for actually a wake and a celebration of life. And in my mind, I was like, oh, that's got smaller rooms. Maybe on a weekday, it's near the M25, which is what they wanted. Maybe they would consider. Yeah. So I went on the website, and the website was down. So I don't know what possessed me, but I like to be kind and nice. And one business person to another, I thought I would phone them and let them know, hey, you know, your website's down, because I would want to know if mine was down. And Steve, who at the time was, you know, late 60s, just about to turn 70, answered the phone. I give the context of his age because he, you know, he was really funny, and I really feel like it's relevant to his character. And just, you know, an incredible person, but if he doesn't care about something, he just doesn't care about something.
I get it.
So he, you know, he's at that age now where he's like, my way or the highway, and if I want to talk to you, I will, and if I don't want to talk to you, I won't. And So he kind of answered the phone and he was like, hello? But no, hello, the Ravenswood. How can I help you? Just hello? So I was like, oh, is this the Ravenswood? And he said, yeah, why? What do you want?
What do
I
you
was
want?
like, oh, well, I just phoned to let you know your website was down. And he was like, yeah, no, I took it down. So I was
You
like,
took it
oh,
down.
okay. I took it down. So I said, why? What are you doing? And he said, I'm going fishing. So of course I was like, what is this? And I kept just pulling the string. What's happening? Tell me what's going on. And he basically told me that it had been he'd cancelled everything in the last couple of months due to ill health. He'd cancelled all weddings.
Okay.
Like within weeks of the weddings, he's just sent a check back. Like, we're done. We're out. You're not getting married here. It was quite a thing. And
Wow.
yeah. And he said that he was hoping to have it. It had people who wanted to turn it into flats, developers that had put a bid in for it, but they just pulled out, and he was putting it back on the market. So of course I got overexcited and I was like, we're going to buy this wedding venue. No idea how we're going to do this, but we're buying this wedding venue. So I said, I'll call you back. So I phoned Stuart and I was like, I found our wedding venue. He was in America at the time. He was coming back Tuesday. I said, great, pick you up from the airport. We'll go look at it. So we're driving down the drive. Now, for context, Stuart's thinking, little barn, business park. This is a 14th century building with a 21st century modern extension with 34 bedrooms. It's massive.
I've seen it. Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I went, what the hell?
And that's what Stuart did. As he drove down the drive, he was like, Stuart's got a Scottish accent, and he was like, Sam, this is not a barn. Like, what is this?
I remember when I saw it, I went, holy cow.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
it's
honestly, I
beautiful.
don't know.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what either of us were thinking, if I'm completely honest. But we just thought it was a great idea. Once he'd had a tour, he loved it. But what was interesting is in my mind, I was like, we could do a wedding every day. And in Stuart's mind, people got married on Saturdays. So we'd have a restaurant, we'd open up the bedrooms, we'd have comedy night on a Tuesday. And it took a lot. It actually took me taking him to another wedding venue to show him, they do 320 weddings a year. Yep. And I said to the girl on the open day, hey, I want to get married next year on a Saturday. And she laughed in my face and then pulled out the calendars with yellow dots on every day that was booked. And Stuart just looked at the dots, obviously, but he's a businessman. He just saw money. And so that was how I handled that. But I mean, we were wild. Like, the bank said, there's no way we're getting a mortgage. Neither of us have any education in hospitality.
Those are the best people to have a business.
Yeah, we have. I mean, Stuart left school at 14. Like,
my mentor left school. I think he left school when he was around the same age, and then he opened up his first record shop, and then now he owns like one of the top 5 music publishing companies in the world, and he was my mentor. I was like,
amazing.
I think that banks have it incredibly wrong.
Super wrong. Eventually they buckled. They asked us for everything. They made Stuart sign his life away. We had a really good deal with Steve. He was really funny. On a golden handshake, we gave him 150,000 and he gave us the keys, and we just told him we'd rent it off of him and see what happened. No lawyers, no nothing. He was just like, yeah, great, handshake's good for me. That works. And giving you the context previously.
I wish we had more business deals like that. You'd have millionaires everywhere.
Oh, it was amazing. Like, I look back now and, it was 7.5 years ago, and I look back and I'm like, that was just wild. I mean, he had nothing to lose. He was like, oh, well, yeah, cool. Well, I get to keep the 150 grand if they mess it up, and then I get the building back. It's great. But I very quickly activated everyone I knew from having been in the wedding industry and having, a large collection of people I'd worked with in the local area in terms of mums and hairdressers and everything, and just was spread the word and was like, we're open, we're starting this again. And we went back to the bank probably like, I don't know, about 6 months later and said, look, we've booked 80 weddings now. You're going to have to give us a mortgage. We've got to have a mortgage.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, still to this day, they kind of laugh about that scenario because we are still, we're with the same bank. We've actually moved up an echelon now with them. But there was a point where about 3 or 4 years in, we spoke to the bank manager that gave us the mortgage. And he said, I don't know quite how I agreed to it, but you just had something that just made me go, okay, you know what, let's just give it a go. And he said, but it was one of my more concerning decisions.
One of my more concerning decisions.
I was like, fair, I do understand.
Listen, in life is about the gamble of life and the spontaneity at the same time. In doing that, look what you prospered to and you done. But also, I think that you should actually make a documentary about it, because I think it'd actually be quite cool. And teaching people those type of methods. Yes, it's not contemporary. Yes, we know it's not contemporary, but at the same time it kind of is. So I'm contradicting myself, but I'm sure, Sam, you understand why.
I know what you mean. There's the element of, life has put something in front of you. Yeah. Just take the leap and take the jump and just go for it. And there's also the other side of it, which is, if you started to think about the what ifs and what could go wrong, you just wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. But I just had this overwhelming sense of confidence of, I know weddings. And
you had a belief, Sam. That's what it is. You had a belief, and that's what
I just had the belief. And for me, it was very much this venue is stunning. You can't not sell weddings here. And at the time, I didn't know how to do a P&L. I didn't even know what profit and loss was. Like, I'd been running my one-man band show on my personal bank account. Like, what's a P&L? Like, I have no idea. And then it was, okay, well, we've got to check people in, and we need fire regulations, and we need this, and we need this. And it was such an incredible learning curve. And, I worked my way from doing the sales to then doing the delivery to closing the venue, opening the venue, just every part of it. Luckily, thank goodness, the venue came with 3 incredible staff that had already been there for 20 years. So when it was like, where's the light switch? They knew. That's one of the funniest conversations in these venues, is you're standing in a room and all the lights are on and you have absolutely no idea. And it's under a counter somewhere at the back behind the bar, Yeah, many a funny tales of just luckily I had done a lot of bar work in my teens, to get through London College of Fashion, etc. I'd worked in pubs. Thank goodness. I cannot carry a plate. Like, don't give me a plate to put down, but I can pour a pint. So we're all good. So that was fine. And obviously I was fortunate to have Stuart with me, and he'd already scaled 2 companies. And we both, at the time when we took over Ravenswood, to make it more sensible, we both moved on to site. We had some other incredible people helping us at the time. And I literally would go to his house every evening. I mean, his wife is just the most amazing person ever. I would turn up at his house in my pajamas with my cigarettes. I don't smoke anymore, but at the time I did, with my cigarettes. And I would sit in his lounge for probably about 2.5 hours, going through everything that happened in the day, what was going on, what this customer said, what that customer said, how the wedding went, what I did with this, and blah, blah, blah. And, he just helped me to evolve. And yeah, that was definitely a lot of fun. A lot of cigarettes, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of cigarettes. See, this is why I love stories like this, because it shows that you don't have to have, like we say, education on anything, but at the same time, like when we got really into the depth of it, it was your belief and your faith with Stuart coming in, and he must have been like, holy cow, like I was when I saw it, and was like, but there's something about venues that take your breath away. And when you're
Yes.
getting married and you see a venue that takes your breath away, then you know that's the right venue for you. It's the same way when you talk about having a connection with your client. That is one of the
Yes.
things that I teach people. That's one of the things that I always say to people. If you have a beautiful connection with someone, and it might be that you never have that connection again, but as long as you're working with them to give them 200% of who you are, creativity, your work ethic, how you are as a person, you will flourish and they will flourish in the way that when they look back at their pictures, they will feel an emotional connection forever. And that's what you
Yeah.
want, because stories are pictures just silently. They're still pictures just silent. And I always say that to people. So you doing that, you've answered so much, you being a businesswoman as a woman, as we spoke about even before we began the show, you deciding to go on this crazy journey with Stuart and shaking the guy's hand and just saying, yep, we'll do this business transaction with you. You know what? I think we should do more of those in the world. Sam, please teach that in your
We've done
lessons.
a few more things.
Good. I'm so glad you said that. Please teach people to do that, because I believe in the world that there are a lot of people still on what if, and that's what the one thing that takes people away from their dreams is the fear of what if. That word fear and what if takes people away from their dreams, and then they start using excuses. Oh, I have a family. Oh, I wouldn't be able to do it because I don't have this, that, and the other. But this is so important, and I'm so glad that you've come on the show. You know, it's one of the best stories that I've heard in a very long time, you know, and I thank you for it, because there are so many things that are happening in the world at the moment, as we all know. But having people who believe in their dreams and aspirations in doing so lets people know that they're not in their home by themselves just thinking of a dream, that they can make it reality. So that's my thank you to you. I kind of went on for a little while, but it's something that
No, I love it. I appreciate it.
It's something that I must say.
I think and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I think you're so right. It's a lot of the things that I, the people I look up to. Obviously, you follow people online, etc. I've been to some, inspirational speakers, different talks. I'm very much into how I can better myself, how I can improve myself, how I can reach further, how I can look into, what other people are doing and thinking. But it really, for me, is about just going, okay, well, if I love the quote of, if money was no object, how big could you dream? And so, well, let's start there. And then the concept of, okay, well, let's start there and then let's plan it backwards. Like, how does this go? And also for me, it's an ever moving target. Like, we just talked about Ravenswood. I would have lived happily ever after running one wedding venue. I was thrilled and I was happy. And Stuart is like, one man, one van makes £1,000. Let's get 10. And I remember the first time that came out of his mouth, and he said, we should have 10 wedding venues. And I literally looked at him and was like, you are smoking crack. Like, there's no way anyone could run 10 wedding venues. What are you talking about? I don't have kids, but they say the transition from one child to 2 children is chaos. And then adding 3, 4, 5, and 6 is like, sure, whatever, just keep them coming. And that for me was very much, going from one wedding venue where I was super hands-on to then having to pull myself back and have 2 wedding venues, one of which was 4 hours away that I couldn't even get to.
Oh. So how did that?
So you look there like, why would you do that?
No, I do understand, because now you've got like double figures, right? Like you've got in England, and you also have in the USA.
We have 12 now. I have 3 in the US and 9 in the UK. Yeah.
See, so you've got 12 babies, and you're international. You've got 12 babies. You're international with what you do. Yeah. So you know what my next question's going to be, right?
Mhm.
You've gone from.
Do you sleep at night? No.
Do you know what? Even being a photographer, you don't sleep at night. So I can
No,
only
you
imagine you
don't.
having, 12. How is it handling these 12 venues? Because obviously now you definitely have a team, and
Yeah.
then you have Stuart as well, who's been great towards you.
Yeah.
But you've also, I'm sure, very much so, you've also been great towards him and how things work. How do things work for you now?
So it's actually interesting you asked that, because for me, where I started, I was looking after the sales and marketing, and then I was looking after the sales, marketing, delivery. And then I started to take on some of the property and the maintenance and the interior design. And then I started to take on the finance. And then I was like, move over. I'm going to be the CEO and take everything together. And he was like, okay. So
Get out of the way.
and I feel like I had to a degree, one for my own personal growth, but two, because it's the wedding vision is it's all so interrelated. I'm not going to lie, there's still things I learn. We've been doing mortgages recently, and he's had to teach me all about the mortgages so that I can learn to take those over. And his role now is still very much the expansion. So the role that he holds is locating the new venues. There's a funny, we talked about women in business. There became a point, we've probably looked at probably somewhere in the region of about 200 wedding venues. I'm super fussy. So
It's
for
good
me
to be
accept,
fussy.
yeah, no, you have to be. So for me to accept a venue into our collection, it's a long list of criteria. And so he'll find good venues, good deals. I'll look at them on the website, and then I'll go and I sign them off. But it's my decision. And it's hilarious because 90% of the time, not so much now, because now that we called the group the Gilchrist Collection, and then people realize I'm Samantha Gilchrist, and they kind of find out a bit ahead of time, there's a little bit more respect there. But previously, Stuart would deal with him. We would both turn up. We'd do the whole tour, and it would usually be, a sort of older gentleman that was doing the tour with us. It was his venue. We'd be doing the whole tour, and I would ask a question, and he would give the answer to Stuart. And I would ask the next question, and he would give the answer to Stuart. And this would go on for the whole tour. He would address everything to Stuart. And we just, in the beginning, I got upset. And then in the end, it just became a game for us. And we got to the point where we would get to the end of the conversation, and they would say, well, what do you think? And Stuart would turn around and say, oh, it doesn't matter what I think. It's her decision. And you could see them have this moment of,
Oops.
oh my goodness, I've just spent an hour ignoring her. It's her decision.
That's why we were talking before.
entertaining.
That's why we were talking before about the ego of a person, and also it's. I always have this conversation with people about a person never knows or respects you sometimes until they either know your title or your name, as you say. And it's sad that it actually has to be that way, especially as a woman in an industry. And that's why we have to be a lot stronger. But like you said, because your personality can just, it just twists and turns with people and their personalities. It doesn't affect you anymore because you know who you are and you're comfortable in your skin. And that's very important when you're owning a business, for you to be comfortable in your skin. So even if it's coming from, because there are many countries where things are not tolerated, especially women in business, and we've all been through them. And it's the way we articulate ourselves. But at the same time, one thing I do like, and I commend a man for, is when he gives the power to a woman as well, like Stuart does with you. I find that really commendable.
He's phenomenal like that. He really has. Ultimately, I'm very open about the fact that I'm a photographer. I view all the wedding venues from a photography viewpoint, from a, how does the day flow? Where would you take those photos? Where's the bar in relation to the function room? Because you don't want everybody to get lost in lots of different rooms. And there's a lot of things from my experience as a photographer and watching weddings work well and weddings not work well that I bring to the table. And then there's the creative aesthetics on what I want the website to look like, how I want the socials to look, how I want the emails to go out. All of these details are the things that I am very strong and very opinionated about, etc. But the business side I've had to learn, and he's been fantastic in mentoring me into that. And I would never pretend that, I did this all by myself. I would love to say that, but how do you learn? You have to learn from someone and somewhere.
True. Yeah.
He's been fantastic. And, luckily we also get on really well. We have a very similar taste in music, and, we can chat for hours. And so when we do 9-hour car journeys, we feel for the person sitting in the back, because we just roll the music and sing at the top of our voice, and neither of us can sing well. So
I'm going to get you guys in the
we've
studio.
road tripped. Yeah, we'll come for a jam. It'll be great.
Oh, that's fine with me. That's absolutely fine. So one thing I do, Sam is cracking up. One thing I do want to know is, okay, Sam, I'm going to take you away from your profession for a second, right? And I want to ask you, who is Sam when you are not doing work? When you are not allowed to have a camera, you're not allowed to talk about wedding venues, you're not allowed to be around any work at all. Who is Sam when she's by herself in the evening, or even when you're with your husband? Or who is Sam?
So Sam lives in tracksuits and trainers with a hair in a high pony, no makeup. She can't cook to save her life and doesn't pretend to either. Like, eggs and bacon is great. I love to paint. I am very much into creative journalism. So I have these amazing books. They're called Hobbies books. They're Japanese. And, they're just by day. My friend in New York got me into them, and you can write things in them, but you can also put stickers in them. I mean, for me, it's like an adult sticker book, honestly, but I keep things in them like achievements. I also have one of those printers that prints out pictures from your phone. So, a big achievement or a ticket stub from somewhere, or, something fun that we did, then I kind of put those in to sort of create memories. And I'll do that concurrent to probably watching something on Netflix, and also keeping up with marketing podcasts at the same time, or scrolling TikTok. Yeah, I can't do one thing at a time. It drives my husband crazy.
You're a woman. It's the same. It's fine.
Yeah. When I'm cleaning my house, I'll have a tripod. I've actually got it here. A tripod, which I'll put my phone on, and I'll put my headphones on, and I'll be putting Bridgerton on and traveling the house with the tripods, watching Bridgerton whilst doing the house.
I could see you do that now, just like, hold on, I ain't got the right angle.
Yeah, it's quite entertaining. But I mean, I'm not going to lie, I am a workaholic. It's very hard for me to have downtime. I have an incredible team underneath me that they're absolutely phenomenal. We've managed to, obviously, having 12 venues across 2 countries, we've got a fantastic team that we work with. And that has allowed me to now get to a position where I do have more downtime compared to what I had before. And for example, this weekend just gone, my husband's super into swimming in outdoor lakes, and he's doing Windermere, which is the biggest lake in the country. He's swimming it in 6 weeks' time. So for his birthday, he wanted to go to this gorgeous place called Fritton Lake, where it's like a lovely old country house, and you can do all these walks because they're doing a rewilding project. It's absolutely beautiful. And of course, it has a big lake. So off he went to swim for an hour and a half in the lake. And of course, I meet a couple that are there, start chatting. Of course, they're getting married in 3 months' time. And that's it. The next 2 hours, I'm talking about their wedding with them. My husband gets out and is like, I mean, you're supposed to be switching off. And I've helped them plan her hair. I've seen her dress. The whole thing's worked out. I've talked to them because they're having a marquee wedding. So of course I was like, you need to make sure you have heaters and toilets and blah, 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 and make sure you have your couple time. And it's just a whole thing. It was really funny. But Yeah, so I do try to switch off, but I am also happiest working.
See, so we were talking about music just earlier on, you singing in the car. So if I said to you, Sam, if there was one song that was a soundtrack of your life, what song would it be, and why would you choose that particular song?
Oh, that's an incredible question. One song that was a soundtrack of my life. So weird. I mean, I have many songs that I have connections with, like Joe Nama Trading Love and Affection was our first dance song. It's our love story song of our relationship. You know, me and Stuart both have Scottish heritage, and when we were very drunk in nightclubs many moons ago, for some reason, the last song of the night was always If I Could Walk 500 Miles. I don't know why, but it was. So, you know, whenever we're anywhere that the end of the night of the awards ceremony at the venues or whatever, it's like I make them play that song, and it's the only song I can get him on the dance floor for. But I think for me, it's actually a piano piece, and it's the piano piece that I walk down the aisle to, which is The River Flows in Me. I'm going to say me, it's probably you. And, I mean, I was a Twilight girl growing up.
Oh, yeah. And
I don't know, you know, sometimes you just have movies that you connect with. And for me, whatever, that was something. It's the movie that it's either that or Top Gun that I just put on in the background when I don't, you know, I need something just going on and it's not a thing. And there was a piece of music in there that's called Bella's Lullaby, and it's actually an adaptation of this piece. It is The River Flows in You, and it's by, I'm never going to say this right, it's Yuruma. It's Yiruma. Anyway, whatever. It's a very long classical piano piece, and the Bella song came from it. And I ended up walking down the aisle to it because everybody was walking down the aisle to 1,000 years. And I was like, I'm not walking down the aisle to 1,000 years. So I would love this classical piece.
It's so true.
So I just, I don't know. I don't know if there's necessarily a song that tells my story, but I feel like there's so many songs along the way that have connections to different parts of my life. I mean, there's a whole clubbing era, but we'll leave that there.
Oh no, please don't. No, like I want to know. But maybe we could talk about that off.
We could. Let's just say at a very young age, I was introduced to by some older friends, you know, Ministry of Sound and various other things like that. And, you know, I may have gone to a number of clubs in London and Brighton, and it was great fun. Interestingly, as you know, a side note also for me, I don't drink, and I've never really been a drinker. Even when we used to go out, you know, I would have a few drinks, but never drink. I think I've been drunk maybe twice and didn't really like it. And in my later years, I just stopped drinking. I stopped drinking about 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah. It doesn't mean that alcohol will never pass my lips, and I'm not like, you know, obviously if someone passes me a champagne to do a toast, I'm going to have a couple of sips, but I'm probably going to put it down right after.
Fair enough.
A huge thing for me, and a huge part of that for me was then introducing non-alcoholic cocktails into the venues, and that's a massive campaign that we've done, because we did a whole survey finding out that, you know, 30% of people that attend weddings just don't drink. A lot of the time they're there with kids and they're the driver, and there's various reasons, obviously medical, health wise, and also just choosing not to. So we were like, well, let's make some fancy drinks, because honestly I was fed up of being given Coca-Cola in a tumbler, and I was like, I don't, you know, I'm 40 years old, I don't want to drink a Coca-Cola in a tumbler, you know, or an orange juice. It's like, I need, like, so I just started ordering Coke in a wine glass, and I mean, you should see the looks that I get when I order a Coke in a wine glass. It's great.
You do what I do. I ordered, a mixed drink. So you would mix my drinks. I don't drink as well, but I'd mix juices together randomly, and then I'll put it in a wine glass too. And everyone's like, why you have to be so different? And I was like, well, what's wrong with being so different?
I just, you know, it's so funny because it's like, you know, I don't I don't know. It's like a really funny, like I don't eat tomatoes either, but I don't have to explain to anyone why I don't eat tomatoes. I just say, please take the tomatoes off my plate. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And, you know, I don't smoke anymore, but I don't have to sit and explain to people why I'm not having a cigarette. But as soon as as soon as you say, like, especially being a woman, as soon as you're like, oh, I'm not, actually, no, I'd rather not have an alcoholic drink. They're like, oh, you must be pregnant, or oh, why are you not drinking, and what's wrong with you, and what happened. Like the funniest one for me is people look at me as if to be like, wow, what happened to make you not drink? Like, you must have been a really hardcore alcoholic, or something must have happened. And I'm like,
that's just the stigma of the judgment all the time. And sometimes don't worry guys, I'm not violent. You guys all know I'm not violent, but I feel like headlocking people sometimes when they I'm like, guys, come on, just chill. It's cool. It's absolutely fine with me. So I've only got 2 more for you, Sam. So my second to last one is, if you were to pack up all, this is a very hard question for me to ask you, because I know when somebody has a passion for something, it's very hard to stop. Right?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to. It's something that you do all your life. You shouldn't have to. But when you decide to stop, if you ever do, what would you like your legacy to be, being Sam? Or how would you like people to remember you?
Oh, I love your question. I think I want to, part of the reason why I'm here, I don't need to be here. I don't need to be having this conversation with you. I could sit in my ivory tower in my office. I don't need to have the Instagram that I have. I don't need to have, I started a brides club to get brides educated on weddings. I didn't need to do that. I didn't need to do any of those things. But for me, I really want to inspire other women to just go, no, I can be more if I want to be. I have the utmost respect. I have some incredible friends that are wonderful stay-at-home mums. They raise their children fantastically. They look after their husbands. They create the house. They're fantastic, incredible people. It's not what I wanted. And that doesn't mean I'm never going to have kids. And, my husband is fantastic, but we have a setup where everything I can do, he can do, and everything he can do, I can do. And, if the laundry is dirty, he deals with it. And if I'm home, I deal with it. And that's just because we both work. And I feel like that's teamwork. And I feel like we've very much gone, okay, we're not assigning job roles based on our gender. We're assigning job roles based on, what do you like to do and what do I like to do? And now how do we work as a team, as a couple? So for me, it's a narrative that obviously I did grow up with a single parent mum. She was left holding the baby. She did have to, raise me by herself on her own for whatever reason. My dad, who's a wonderful person, didn't really pay maintenance. I have a great relationship with him now, but back then it was very, very tricky and very difficult between them both. And I just really, for me, it was very much like, I want to have a career and I want to have something that I can create, that I can be proud of. And I'm doing that. But at the same time, I'm looking around going, who are my mentors? Who's inspiring me? And, I don't really, like, obviously there's a part of it where it's like, okay, I am a woman in business. I am a CEO. I am running this company. I really had to handle my own considerations and my own confidence to be able to say that and feel okay saying it and not then have to justify it. I'm very open with you about Stuart's influence into this, but at the same time, there's been moments where I've been like, well, I can't say that I'm the CEO of this company because I've been, female women in business because I've been mentored by a man and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no. It's like,
you should never, you should never feel like that.
But it's an interesting journey. Like you said, as a woman, there's so many different challenges along the way. And there's so many places where you have to justify something or over explain something or You know, I'll be standing in a room of incredible people and I'm waiting for someone to realize that, you know, I grew up on a council estate and I worked in a pub, and it's like, oh, when are they going to catch me out? And then suddenly you check yourself and you're like, no, I delivered 50 weddings last week. I have, you know, in the peak of summer, I have 400 to 600 staff sometimes. We're delivering an incredible product. I have fantastic feedback. And, you know, for me, that's what the weddings is about, is making sure that the weddings are delivered in the venues the way I would deliver them.
Exactly.
And, you know, of course, that takes work and that takes prep and that takes, you know, educating people to be able to deliver it the way I'd want to. And sometimes when we first take over a venue, that can be a challenge.
A good one. The stories are awesome.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, thanks. Remind me when we're done to tell you the story about the lift and the people in the bush that I thought had fallen over and they hadn't fallen over. Anyway.
You know what? I'm so glad this is not recording video, because my face would have just said it all. I've seen many situations in bushes.
Yeah, there's a bit coming one day, I promise you. But yes, to answer your question, for me, that's what I would really love to do. I would really love to inspire other women. And I have been putting myself uncomfortably out there. Like, you know, I was recently nominated by one of my staff for the Enterprise Vision Awards, which is the EVA's Awards. And, you know, it's a Women in Business Award. It's quite a big deal. And, you know, I'm kind of sitting there being like, oh, they're like, you need to post it on your Instagram. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to.
Yeah, I voted for you today, by the way. I was going to tell you afterwards, but now you've mentioned it. So I just thought, you know what? One thing I love to do is support people. It doesn't matter if I know them 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 years. When someone is doing when someone is doing something spectacular in what they do, you just do it. You know, what's wrong with you not doing it? Why would you not do it? But that's my mentality of life. And obviously I believe in peace, kindness and balance. And that's how I see things.
And I think that's incredible.
So, yeah. So, it's funny that you said that, because I was like, yeah, click.
Oh, honestly, you should have seen me. I had Abby sitting in my office being like, you've got to post this on Instagram.
It's a good thing you did, because that's where I found it.
Thank you. She was like, get it posted on Instagram. I'm like posting it, being like, oh, okay.
It's like we pull ourselves back from our own achievements.
100%. And I do think that is something that's also very English. I don't have it when I'm in the US, and it's really interesting because I have some incredible, powerful, you know, business owner friends in the US. I've got, you know, my friend Joanna Vargas. I've got a friend Layla. Joanna owns a skincare company, and then she's an esthetician. And, you know, we meet and we sit down, and it's like, what's happening in your business? What's happening in your business? Yeah. Oh, I could do this collaboration with you. Shall I help you do this? And how do we grow each other?
Elevate,
and, you know, it's super like,
each other.
Girl, boss, let's go.
That's what you do. That's how they do it. Yeah.
In England, I do have some incredible champions, like what you just said yourself. Like, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And, you know, I have an incredible Kelly Mortimer as an industry professional. And, you know, we go on spa days together and literally sit there for the afternoon and just dissect our businesses. No, I think that really is it. To answer your question, is I just want to inspire people to just go, you know what, fuck it, just give it a go. Oh, I told you I'd sweat.
No, that's what I was waiting for it. I was like, she hasn't sweat yet. She hasn't sweat yet.
I'm trying to keep it a bit in check.
Oh,
but yeah, no,
come on.
we have, I think we just, you know, me and Stuart are very interesting but particularly also for me as well, in the viewpoint of, we came from nothing. We can go back if we have to, and we can start again if we need to. And
do you know, Sam, a lot of people can't actually do that. A lot of people can't actually do that. A lot of people, especially people who already come from something, right? And they have a lot. So for people like us, in a way where we have come from, we can say we've come from nothing, but it is something, even if it's something small, right? Even if it's love or family or single
Absolutely.
parents or whatever it might
No,
be.
and a
But
great grounding and a great
we,
upbringing. I had a fantastic upbringing.
this
Like I
is what I
said,
mean.
it never occurred to me that we didn't have money when I was growing up.
See, but then you still said to yourself, I still want to drive myself to be a driving force to do something great with my life. And look at what you've achieved and what you've done. And when you keep that mindset, it's same. I'm a woman in music, you know, you're a woman in CEO of business, and doing, like I said, doing these things gives doors and opportunities to people who would have never thought it was even possible of kicking down these doors. And we find a way. It might not be the conventional way, but we find a way to do that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
Sam, my last question
Yeah.
for you is, I would love for everyone
Okay.
to vote for you, first of all. So make sure you say where to vote for you.
Oh,
And,
thank you.
and then second of all, I would love for anyone who has a wedding coming up, needs wedding advice, you know, wants to kindly speak to you. Where can they find you, your company, and what you do?
Okay, cool. So there's a few answers to that question. And if they wanted to see the venues, they're on the website, which is the gilchristcollection.co.uk. And then we also have the Gilchrist Collection Instagram and TikTok as well, you know, trying to be down with the cool kids. But then if they want to follow my wild personal journey, because I do document a lot, I recently restarted my Instagram because I just wanted it more authentic.
Yeah.
And so my Instagram is Samantha Gilchrist Official. I had to put that because I used to be the only Samantha Worthy on the planet. And then I got married and suddenly Gilchrist is Samantha Gilchrist. There's hundreds of us. So I'm not trying to be silly, like being like, oh, I'm official. Like I genuinely didn't know what else to put at the end of it. So that's where they can follow my journey. I do have a TikTok as well, but honestly, I don't really know what I'm doing with it.
Me too.
And then, yeah. And then if they were looking for wedding advice, I created the Gilchrist Brides Club. And that is a super cute place that we just started growing in the last 2 months. There's an Instagram for it, but there's also, you know, a club that they can actually join online. And it has a 10-module course with 72 videos where I literally just take them through the entire journey. Because the biggest thing we hear all the time is we've never done this before. And it's like, well, for most people, of course, you've never done this before. And people are expected that have never even put on a birthday party. They're suddenly expected to put on an event for 70 to 150 people.
Exactly.
That's a big ask. And there's many places that can go wrong. So last year I grabbed one of my friends that was a videographer, and like over a 3-week period, she just came to my office every afternoon for about 2 hours. And, you know, we just spieled it off, and it's rough and raw, but it's good. And she had to cut out all the times I said like and because it was a lot. But yeah, so there's Gilchrist Collection as well. And then you did mention it's on my Instagram is the Evis Awards, which is really an interesting awards because I'm not going to lie, we've been so blessed and fortunate to have won a number of wedding awards, but the wedding community is quite a small community. Well, I mean, it's a massive community, but in terms of, you know, against the population of the country, it's quite a small community. So when you get nominated for a wedding award, it kind of just goes through the thing and then you just find out if you won it at the other end. And so when I got nominated for the Evas, it was like, oh, okay, cool. And then they're like, yeah, you'll get an interview. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. And then they luckily gave you an education on the interview, and this is what's needed for the interview. And it was a 5-minute presentation that had to be exactly 5 minutes long. And then it was 3 rounds of questions that you had to answer in under 60 seconds. And you didn't get the questions beforehand. And it was past, present, and future. And I'm not going to lie, I've done a lot of things that were high pressure. That's probably the highest pressure thing I've ever done.
I can imagine.
They were lovely, like super nice people, but sweating. I was like, oh my goodness, this is, you know, and like, as you've experienced, I can talk to England. So I have a little phone in front of me with 60 seconds, like timer going off every time they'd ask the question. But yeah, then I realized afterwards what they really, I obviously properly researched it before the interview, but at that time I really started to go, oh, hold on a minute, who is this awards company and what is this? And actually being in this category of, Businesswoman of the Year, I was like, wow, that's actually a big deal. And, they do a lot of things for like International Women's Day. They go to Houses of Parliament. If you win this award, it's really quite a significant award. Yeah. So that's where I was like, okay, put your big girl pants on, put yourself out there. Because, yeah, honestly,
I'd quite like to win it. You know what you need to do? You need to treat it like you're buying another child. Yeah? You know that
child,
that belief.
Yeah, put the energy and effort into my wedding venue babies.
Yeah, when you made that deal, when you took the handshake, that's how you need to treat it, because there is something in that manifestation of belief that you had in, when you bought your first one. You need to have that now. And everything, you've done so much as it is already, but everything that you go through life that is high pressured, always remember that. Always remember that manifestation and belief that you had in the beginning. And that would always make you succeed, even though you don't need my advice on absolutely anything. But I always say it because
I love your advice. I appreciate that.
Because you're never in the positivity. Sorry. No, it's absolutely fine. There's always a positivity in giving someone something, and sometimes what we do is we don't take our own advice, but in giving it to somebody else, it does something wonderful and beautiful for them, and then they realize their worth, because life is a big abundance of life is your self-worth, and that is one of the most beautiful things that you can take with you every day. So anytime like you get in a situation, think of the manifestation and belief that you had from your first one, and carry that with you on every award show, every time you answer a 60-second question, anytime you have that. No, it's true. It's so true. But I'm talking on there. So, Sam, I want to say thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Ask People podcast, expressing your story, your funny journey, your business mentality, where you've come from in the beginning, your humble beginnings, to who you are now, and still being humble. Because one of the things I always notice in interviewing people is where they come from and who they are, and whether or not they carry that humbleness from the beginning of humble beginnings to who they are, even when they have success. And success can be defined in so many different ways, as we all know. This is me just saying thank you for your time, because time is precious. So thank you, Sam, so much again for coming on the show, and I appreciate you.
You're so welcome. I've really enjoyed it, and it was so lovely to speak with you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, you're more than welcome, guys. I want to thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast, and please remember you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Ask People podcast by simply going to the Savio Rocks website or the Ask People podcast website, so we can continue to hear beautiful stories. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm the now I've jinxed it.
Don't say that.
Okay, I'll do it again. That's hilarious.
I should put that in the front. I'm gonna put it in the front.
Oh, okay, good. All right, we definitely should have outtakes on your podcast. Okay, good. Redirect this to you. You see the power in yes if you try.